Hello everybody, my name is Violet Chantal, and hi. I assume that the vast majority of people who are going to be watching this are my returning viewers, any regular viewers of the channel. So hello. It's been a little bit. I made an update video about like 2 weeks or so ago now, that I took down, because one, the audio in it was horrible. And I'm just recording on my MacBook Pro, so I know it's not going to sound as great as the microphone I use when I film on my iPhone, but it just didn't sound very good, and that bothered me a lot. Two, I filmed that in a hotel that I had an absolutely horrible experience at, and that situation really affected me, and it's all resolved, mostly, thankfully. I'm still waiting to receive some compensation for my stay, but besides that, it's mostly resolved. But having a video up on my channel when I haven't made videos in a few months because of how difficult of a time it's been for me, I didn't really want my first video back when I'm, in the process of really healing and moving forward with my life and, growing and, becoming more and more, who I know that I'm meant to be. I just didn't really want, that first video to be in a place that, that treated me horribly. And so I just, decided to take it down because of that. But another reason also was that I kind of in that video was just like, yeah, like I took a break on purpose the last 2 months of the channel. Macro's gonna do that a few times during this, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna keep that in. It's, just in that, like, sorry, excuse me, like, we're moving forward now, after the break and stuff like that, but I didn't really talk about what really, like, fully happened, not because I wasn't comfortable talking about it or, I wasn't trying to hide anything, but I just was like, you know what, I think, like, the way that I myself want to move forward is just keep moving, and I handled everything in my personal life as much as I could, and, and that's what really matters. And of course, that is what matters at the end of the day, mostly. But I also know that deep down that I want to make like a very raw kind of video. I haven't made a video quite this direct and unfiltered and just me really being like so 100,000% authentically myself since I made my Violet Chantal video where I came out, like, I had, been trying to before them, but I, just directly point blank came out as a trans woman on my channel. And I haven't made a video in that kind of fashion since then, and this is going to be kind of similar to it. And what this video is going to be is like, I wanted to finally talk about what's been really going on in my life this year, specifically the last few months of my life. I want to do this because a new era for my channel is actually going to be beginning this month in October of 2025. I guess as like, I guess kind of like a little bit of a reason as to why, part of why that's happening is I'll kind of, I was going to kind of mention this later on, but I'll kind of just jump ahead now and just say a reason why videos haven't really been happening as much this year as I wanted them to. So I record all my videos on my iPhone. I would love to get, like a camera set up, like just like a camera that's, like, designed like just as a camera, that kind of thing. But I really love the Apple, ecosystem, and I bought my MacBook Pro last summer and I love it, and I loved editing on DaVinci Resolve, and I love using, my iPhone, and I just love being in the Apple ecosystem like that. And of course the cameras on the iPhone Pros specifically are fantastic. I own the iPhone 11 Pro Max. That's what I did all of my videos on the weekends after hours and almost all of the Dawn FM ones on. And then I did get the 14 Pro Max. This is my current iPhone. I got this the day it came out actually. And September 2022. It's the Deep Purple colorway. It's the 1 terabyte model. You know, so it was a big, you know, financial commitment for me. And I've had this one for 3 years now. Um, Unfortunately, as much as I love this phone, you know, it's the Deep Purple colorway. You know, everyone knows that purple is one of my, you know, big aesthetics, something that I love quite a lot. It means a lot to me. Um, Unfortunately, I really need to upgrade it finally. Um, the battery on this is under 80% battery health because um, I know the way I'm about to say this might come across as like kind of funny. If it is, then okay. But um, gonna keep honest with people. I use my phone way too much. I'm not. I don't want to. I don't know if I'm like fully like addicted to it. I think I'm just really lonely, and so I just use it a lot. um, and I don't charge it in like the best kind of ways. Like I wait till it gets really low, and then I don't even charge it till it gets like to 80%. Like I'll just unplug it. Like that. That's not how you treat a battery. Um, and so it's degraded, you know, in 3 years to under 80% battery health, and um, I could just get a battery replacement, you know, of course, through Apple. But one of the other issues, and this is the main issue, is that this was the last iPhone they ever made with the Lightning cable, the Lightning port at the bottom here. Um, you know, they switched to USB-C on the 15 models, and then for the Pros, you know, Thunderbolt, you know, 3 specifically is what they switched to. And you can, you know, for that, you know, you can do like high transfer speeds and data, you know, transfers, you know, from your iPhone to like your MacBook, for example. And that would make my life so much easier with the YouTube content because what I have to do when I have been making videos the last year or so, when I, you know, my MacBook Pro, you know, editing on that and filming the iPhone, you know, editing the MacBook, is I have to airdrop the videos from my iPhone to my MacBook Pro. And that takes a long time. I remember specifically the Hurry Up Tomorrow one that took around like an hour and a half to airdrop. And I already was awake at that point for like 20 hours or so, and the video took me 8 hours to edit once it finally got onto my MacBook. And, you know, rendering that and then uploading that, I was awake for almost 30 hours. And I know that, you know, looking back on that, you know, as proud as I am of that video, you know, and it was my decision, of course, to make that video and to stay up for so long and make sure it got uploaded, you know, as quickly as I could, um, that I could have, you know, saved time by having, you know, like USB, you know, C3 or Thunderbolt 3, whatever exactly it's called, you know, on my iPhone, you know, and having like you gotta have, sorry, I'm stuttering. You have to have a specific kind of cable to do those kind of transfers and stuff like that. But, um, you know, I am more than willing to get, you know, get those cables and spend the money for them. And so that's kind of been a big discouraging factor for me in making videos because there's time that, you know, gets, you know, spent, that it would just be a lot easier if I could, you know, just have faster transfers and stuff like that. But the other really main big issue is that my microphone, I bought it last February from my local Apple store. It's the like February of last year. It's the Shure MV88 Plus, I believe that's what it's called. Very nice microphone. I don't think Apple sells it anymore, unfortunately, but it's a really nice microphone. Um, Unfortunately, the lightning cable, like, you know, like, you know, connected to the microphone and then you do the lightning, you know, out to connect to your, you know, iPhone. I don't know what I did, but I lost it, back in like, I would say like at the end of like the winter or like the beginning of like the spring, if I remember correctly. And I have never been able to find it, and I've been, you know, looking at like getting like a replacement online, and I probably am just not looking, you know, in the places I should be, maybe. But I can't quite find the absolute like correct cable for it because like the length of it and the design of it was a certain way that works best with that specific microphone. but I still have the USB-C one. And I will make sure I do not lose that one. I definitely will not lose that one. Um, and so I, was like, oh, I really need, the, the USB-C model now of the iPhone, specifically the Pros, because only the Pros have the USB-C, or like the Thunderbolt, like 3 through 5, type stuff where you can do those kind of transfer stuffs of the regular iPhones and of the Air, I believe only has like USB-C 2, I believe. And so yeah, so that's been a really big discouraging factor in why I haven't made videos. And a part of why I'm making this video finally now is because I am going to be upgrading my phone very soon. It will be this month. I'm upgrading from the 14 Pro Max. I'm gonna get the 17 Pro Max. I've already ordered my phone case for it, the screen protector. I've ordered even like a little like phone charm thing for it that has like little like pink bows. I'm very excited about that. And I have like lens protectors also. And I'm really excited. And I'm gonna get the phone really soon. I have the finances ready to go for it. And I'm really excited. I'm very likely gonna get the 2 terabyte model also for it. I was debating if I wanted to do that or not, but um, I think I'm gonna go for the 2 terabyte model. And so that's really exciting. And that will help too because I want to film some stuff in ProRes a bit more. But unfortunately, if you want to film and stuff like that, it takes up so much space on your iPhone. And so, I that would help a lot more because I have 1 terabyte already, but I have a lot of like music downloaded on my iPhone, and I don't delete messages with like the people that like I am friends with, and so like I do have a decent amount of storage already taken up, and so 2 terabytes would help. And I'm planning on getting some external hard drives for my MacBook Pro soon to help with doing stuff like that. And so I have it all in place. What I want to do. Um, and so I am going to be able to make videos again in like the quality I want to very, very soon. I'm very excited for that. And so that is a part of why I haven't been making videos at all recently, is because of that. But also like it is kind of the end of an era in a way because you know, like it is for so many people, of course. I know I'm not like special like with when I say this, but like my phone is such an integral part of my life, besides the fact that I use it too much, of course. But like communicating with people and making the videos that I have and having memories that I captured of like the camera system on here, and just like so many things like happened to me like with this phone. Like I started hormone therapy when I had this phone. I changed my name legally having this phone. Like I filled out paperwork and sent emails like on this phone for things like that. And like did like calls and appointments on this like so much has like happened with this like device, and like I've so many memories have happened with it, but also some traumas have happened with it, and I I've always viewed like getting a new phone for me, so like iPhone is sort of like a new kind of like chapter in my life in a kind of way. I like one of my therapists um always likes to compliment me on that. Like I think about things in a very specific way with like time and like narrative kind of ways, and like how like the story of my life has gone. And I think that kind of just stems from who I am, I guess like soul wise, and healing wise, but also I think a lot of it just stems from just like what I've gone through in my life. And specifically like one of my favorite quotes ever, I knew it was like one of my favorite quotes when they first said it, but Jane Schonbrun, I believe is how I pronounce their name. I sometimes struggle with saying the last name. They're the director of I saw the TV Glow, We're All Going to the World's Fair. They had a quote when they first premiered I Saw TV Glow, talking about how trans people view time differently than everyone else, and that they view it in a very like specific kind of way. I forget the exact quote. I think it's like trans people view time in a very like different, specific kind of way. And that is one of my favorite quotes ever, because I agree with that. And I don't know, I just like, it's been 3 years with this phone now, and I feel ready to move on, and of course I'm very privileged and I'm very blessed that I'm, able, to do that, of course. But I want to recognize that, of course. And so yeah, I just I'm excited for a new chapter. With such an important part of my life, And so with YouTube, specifically, knowing that that's going to be happening, you know, coming back to YouTube in the way that I want to. Um, I've tried a few times this year to make videos, and I've made apologies about there being delays, and I specifically made a very harsh video on myself that was titled "I'm Sorry." That video, I think, came out around like, I think it came out like on like May 27th, if I remember correctly. And the whole video was me just basically bashing myself and being like, I'm failing people, and like I'm letting people down, and I'm like a terrible like YouTuber and all this stuff. And I've made a few attempts now at apologizing or saying really harsh stuff about myself, and then nothing really ever comes to fruition with things changing for the better. And so, with me knowing that, I'm gonna be able to make videos again, like in the way I want to, and I look forward to that. I also know that like there was a lot of things I've gone through this year that resulted in those behaviors on my channel, with the broken promises and me like apologizing and saying videos are coming and they never do. And I was, to kind of reference back, what I was, my starting point in all of this with the update video I made over 2 weeks ago. I didn't really get into what had fully happened, and a lot of that is because I don't want to overshare on the internet, of course, but a lot of it also was that it's like I just didn't know yet how to talk about it, because a lot of it I've already like moved on from, but there are still some things that I definitely haven't, and I'm not gonna hide that. But I also like want the focus to be on that, like I'm going to be okay, and that the things that have happened to me this year that have hurt me, that I am glad that they happened, honestly, because I learned so much from them, and I have changed for the better in so many ways. And I've had things happen that forced me to look like even more than when I realized I was trans, like fully look so directly in the mirror and be like, what are you doing, and who are you, and like what are you doing that's harming you and others. And I'm really grateful for that. And it definitely has not been easy. I'm not going to monetize this video, so I know I can say this word, but I guess trigger warning, this is not the, like the easiest part of the video to watch if you're watching this whole thing, but I have had a lot of really, really close to ending my life moments happen this year, specifically in March and June, a little bit in July, but mainly those 2 months. And like I don't want to like romanticize those aspects of it too much, because that sucked. But at the same time, the pain that I went through made me so much stronger, and I'm glad that it happened to me, because it made me realize things about myself that I wouldn't have if I hadn't gone through that. And I like to look at the positives in every situation that happens to me, as even if like some of them are mainly just negatives, you know, of course, but um I just want to just like look at things, and I've been doing this for like a year or two now, but like I just try to look at things in a sense of like what can I take like from the things that have happened that have like negatively impacted my life, like and myself, and my friends and my family. Like, okay, like what can I take from this to better myself, and what do I need to take accountability for, and like what do I, you know, need to recognize as a flaw with myself and mistakes I made. And you know, I just have to look at myself, and I hold those lessons very dear to me. Um, and I just wasn't sure how to convey all of that. You know, at the time, even though it was just 2 weeks ago, um, because some of the things that have happened to me, while like I mean all of that genuinely, some of the things that have happened to me this year broke my heart and destroyed me. And I want to, it just I didn't know how to like balance those two conversations, and also, you know, have the main focus be like, you know, I'm moving forward with my life, and you know, I'm kind of like beginning again in like certain kind of ways, you know. um and you know, you can't run from your past, and you know, as they say, you know, and you know, Twin Peaks, you know, The Return specifically, the past dictates the future. That's one of my favorite quotes in any film ever. This is extremely random. I'm just gonna ramble about this quickly. I saw the entirety of Twin Peaks: The Return in theaters last month. I I could go on and on about that. That's one of the few positives in terms of like things that were 100% positives for me in the last few months. That was a beautiful experience. So shout out to Twin Peaks: The Return. All Twin Peaks, you know, but specifically Twin Peaks: The Return. So yes. But yeah, there is that quote in it. You know, the past dictates the future. I think that's even one of the part titles, if I remember correctly. And 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 so, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, happened, and you know, they happened, but there's also a lot of things that are like I know don't define me, but in order for them not to define me, I have to take accountability and look at myself and be like, Violet, like, why did you do this? Like, what was your, you know, true motivations, and like all this stuff in terms of like really like you're not shying away, you know. But also I didn't want to be like overly like harsh on myself, you know. And so it's like trying to balance the conversation of like moving forward, but also like acknowledging what had happened. You know, I just wasn't really sure how to like balance yet. But the last, you know, I would say like few days specifically, I'm filming this on October 4th. This will go up on the 5th. Assuming by the time I can get this uploaded. I've been having some really great conversations the last few days with some people in my life. And it's been really kind of dawning on me that I am really moving forward. I'm making great progress and moving forward with my life. But that the YouTube thing is still like right now the biggest challenge for me, honestly, because I want to make videos again. Like, I'm getting the new iPhone, you know, for me myself soon, so I'll make it easier to make videos. But there's some things I want to talk about on the channel before I do that. So I know this was probably the longest intro to a video ever made on YouTube. But I want to tell everybody what's been really going on with me this year. Um, you know, and let me just kind of get into that. You know, because after I make this video, this is like for me, you know, of course, like I just explained, the past dictates the future, and there are things that have happened, of course, that are just part of my story. They're always going to be. But I also say to myself that it's like there are a lot of things that like I know I'm already have changed, and I have grown, and I've matured, and I have new perspectives, and I'm healthier, and I'm happier, you know, and in a lot of ways. And I want to, you know, grow on that, and have that like define the rest of this year for me. Um, and I feel like the only way I can really fully do that, you know, because I'm so close to you know, getting to that place, is making sure that I do that with the channel also in a way. And I also just want to talk about some of this stuff too, just because like I've I wasn't ever gonna talk about this so like directly on camera. I was thinking of maybe because I've never made music about this ever, um, but um, in the beginning of my Dawn FM reaction, I talk about, I mean, I was hinting a lot about like, transitioning and stuff, just being very, like secretive and kind of mysterious about it. In reality, I was just very scared to talk about it, obviously, looking back. But I also talk a lot about how like I was going through like some pain, and like I was like taking out like my emotions on like me, myself, and others, and all this stuff. And I had to look at myself and be like, what am I doing with my life? Like all this stuff. Um, what actually was going on back then was that, and this is very heavy, so just trigger warning for anyone watching this. I realized I was trans because I was groomed. I've been groomed twice in my life, unfortunately, but the last time I had just turned 18 and I was groomed by somebody that was older than me. And I realized I was trans from that whole experience, and that I'm very, of course, appreciative and grateful of, because I don't think I would have figured out that I was trans for a little while longer. And I'm really, really happy that I got to begin my transition basically right after I turned 18. But at the same time, being groomed and taken advantage of in a lot of emotional and physical ways is not easy, to put it lightly. I just don't want to get too graphic or triggering for anybody, but um, it it was really hard on me, and I have completely healed from that situation. But making that video and having an intro where I kind of, even though I wasn't too insanely direct about that specific part, at least like acknowledging it in some kind of way for me on my channel really, really helped me. And with what I've gone through recently in my life, I kind of want to do the same thing. And so let me just kind of get into it. And also, I want to provide context as to why the channel has gone in the directions that it has this year, and with my broken promises and all that stuff. So let me finally get into that. The beginning of this year, for my channel was like crazy. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, because like I did the reaction to Perverts, the EP by Ethel Cain, and then I did her first album, Preacher's Daughter, and I adored both of those projects. And then very shortly after, Hurry Up Tomorrow by The Weeknd came out, and my channel gained over 1,000 subscribers in that month period. And just I hadn't gotten attention like that ever, and it was so just magical. And it was a really special time in my life. And I I just felt just so like grateful and excited about my future on YouTube. But in my personal life, things were a bit complicated, because at the time I had two jobs, and I decided in the middle of January to quit one of those jobs, because that job, there are people there that are making me uncomfortable, and the leadership there, I just didn't trust, and so I left that job, which I'm very glad that I did. Again, it's one of those kind of situations. I just look at the positives of it and the lessons I learned, and I learned a lot about boundaries and stuff, from that job, and just how I like to conduct myself, in workplaces, of course. But it was really tough because, that was a big source of income for me that was just gone. And I was, considering, getting a second job at the time, but I kind of hesitated. And Also, right around this time, I was trying to get back into like education stuff, because I talked about this a little bit in my Hurry Up Tomorrow reaction, but talk about it, I guess, a bit more directly. I am a high school dropout, and getting my GED is one of my biggest goals. I do have a timeline for that right now that I can talk about another date, but talk about what happened back in January and stuff like that. I tried attending like just like no, not for any like credit stuff like that, but just like a film class kind of thing near me. Um, and I attended two, and I remember at the end of the second class, um, I just felt like an idiot and that I didn't like belong there. Um, and so I kind of was like kind of stopped looking into like the education stuff a lot at the time. And so me not having, a second job, um, and not want to do education stuff, I was like, well, I can go in with the YouTube stuff more, I suppose. And so I was like, okay, like I'll start doing that. But um it got a bit tricky because a lot of my friends don't even know about this actually. So this is kind of going to be a surprise to them because I know some of them will watch this video. Um, there was a death in my family back in January um, that like really, really upset me. Of course, but um, I I just like there was a lot about everything and that like surrounding it, a lot of the context of it that like made me really really sad. And so I just was in a bit of like a weird headspace back then where it's like, wow, like the YouTube stuff is going great, and that's my main thing I want to keep doing besides my main job that I still had at the time. But so many aspects of my personal life are in a very confused or just sad place right now. And so moving into February, I was like, okay, like, I want to kind of just like get my focus back again. And in February, I finished like my name change like journey. I got my birth certificate amended, which was very exciting. Um, and so I was like, okay, I really feel like after that I can just get going, on my life and stuff like that. And the goal at the time was that, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep working on my main job, which I mainly only worked on the weekends. But I am also in my free time gonna do YouTube. And so at the time, I was trying to, first just at least do the three EPs of Ethel Cain's, Carpet Bed. Um, I'm I'm already forgetting the name of the second one, which I feel bad about because I'm not an Ethel Cain fan anymore. But I feel bad because I feel bad forgetting the name of that. But I know Inbred was the third one. And so I was, actually, I'm gonna look up the name of that second EP because I don't want to be disrespectful. Let me look up the name of that quickly. I think it was called like a Golden Age. I think that's what it was called. Yeah, Golden Age. Yeah. Um, yeah. So at least, like I said, I didn't vaguely remember it. Yeah. So I wanted to do those three EPs. And I was like, after that, like I'm gonna do all these other like music reactions and do more film videos finally, and all this stuff. Um, and I thought it was a great goal for me. And I to this day don't really know like what happened. Sorry, I was gonna my legs are getting a little sleepy. I was gonna move around for a second. My apologies, but um, I to this day don't really know what happened fully. But I remember I announced like dates and stuff for the EP reactions, and I was trying to do the carpet bed one specifically for like 2 days, and I kept having like I don't know if they were like anxiety attacks or panic attacks. Like like the one of them kind of seemed like the last one kind of seemed like a panic attack because I was like hyperventilating a little bit and I felt like I was gonna like faint, and I it was it was just like, it was kind of scary. um and it was something about like doing the video. Like I don't know like what it was, because like back then I was becoming a very big fan of Hayden's, and like I I loved especially the preacher's daughter reaction, and so I was like, why am I like, what's happening with this? um and to say, I don't really know why that happens, but it kind of scared me to do videos. And so I was like, okay, I guess I kind of just need to take a bit of a break. But that kind of started a cycle of like me making promises that never really like came to like fruition. Um, and so I kind of just took a bit of like a break from doing YouTube. The only thing I really did in February was is I released a time a Sovereign Wanderer project called You Can Rest Now. That then got transformed to just like the song, like the title track is like its own thing now. I'll talk about that in a second. Sorry, excuse me. Um, and so I just kind of took like a bit of a break. Um, but in my personal life, things were starting for me to go like really well again. Um, and because I had finished getting like my name change done, and I was getting closer to people that I really cared about in my life, and I felt I was improving some of my friendships, and I was learning a lot about myself back then. um but also around this time, I kind of started to get overwhelmed by some of the things that I was learning about myself and some of the connections that I was having. And I started to not like to just kind of like rush to with multiple people. Like, okay, like you should do this that or do this and that. Like I wasn't taking the same amount of time as I used to like put in like thought and the amount of care that I like to put into the people that I love and I care about. Um, and that created situations with multiple people, um, where I was being very like compulsive, with like I want to do this or that, in terms of like plans and stuff like that, or spending money on things, for gifts for friends, and like and stuff for my family, and like I realized that, well, I think part of what was happening back then was that like you know all the stuff in January and my personal life that was making me a bit like sad, with like the education stuff not going well, and what's going on in my family and all the stuff happening in February. I kind of began to realize that there was like a big like void in my life that I was clearly trying to fill. um and not being able to do YouTube really made my big issue in terms of that become more like apparent for me. um because when January was so successful for me, I was like, oh my god, look at all this attention I'm getting, and stuff like that, and like it made me feel good about myself. And so I kind of was searching for like these like compulsive like dopamine rushes and stuff like that with like people. um and it just like wasn't great. And it then like at the beginning of March, though, um it started to get really hard on me, because this was when and this is where the video is going to get really personal. This is where it doesn't have to do too much with YouTube, just to warn people. But I I started realizing at the beginning of March that I don't that and like I this is the only part about everything that's happened that I've been a little weary of talking about so publicly, because I don't want to disrespect like anybody, like I truly mean it when I say like like the things that happened in my life, I look at the positives of it as much as I can, and and stuff like that. But I also know that I can't lie, and that I need to speak my truth, and that's what's going to really set me free. I began realizing in March, even if I was in denial about it for months and months, that there were friends in my life that were taking advantage of me, and that were lying to me and manipulating me. And this was multiple people. Um, and you know, I I went into a lot of states, specifically, with some people where I was like trying to like defend their actions in my head and try to make rationale of them. And when I would think like, oh, this is a little odd behavior in terms of like what I thought their character was, or certain ways they would communicate with me and all this stuff. Like I said to myself, I was like, like they're going through this or this is happening, and all these excuses. When the reality of the situation I know now is that, yeah, people can be going through stuff and going through a hard time, but that doesn't give them the excuse to manipulate me and to lie to me. Um, and, and basically take advantage of me. And, use my kindness as a weakness. And, to kind of jump forward a bit, it really came to like the most like crushing point in June, and ever since then, I've realized with multiple people that were in my life, that there were so many that were taking advantage of me. And like that's not a word that I use lightly, like using me for money, like using me for like popularity, and like using me to like hide parts of themselves they didn't like. um and it's been really hard because it's like I of course, like, you know it's not, I'm not happy that I went through that stuff, and I was hurt in a lot of ways that is not fair to me. But also at the same time, I said to myself throughout all the instances of that happening to me for the last few months, like, I was like, Violet, you also have to take this as a really emotional as it is and hard as it is a learning lesson, that boundaries for myself need to be worked on more and implementing them more, and also not giving people the benefit of the doubt quite as much. All of my friends in my life now, I know I 100% can trust, and that I love all of them. But there were so many people in my life that I was like, no, I don't think these people want the best intentions for me or have the best intentions for me. Um, and it was destroying me. And it's been a slow, last couple of months, it's been like, 4 months or so now of, figuring all of that out. And, I'm very happy to say that the people in my life now, I love all of them. They're all amazing people, and I trust all of them, and I'm very grateful to be, in their life and to be their friend. But um, part of why I haven't made videos is that like I've basically been going through like a crisis period in my life, where I began realizing that I was blind to so many things happening to me and how I was being treated, but also that I wasn't taking care of myself, and that I also purposely would make myself oblivious to things that I kind of knew were suspicious or like an issue, um, and that was hurting myself. And I also feel like in return, like hurting others, because like it would continue to blossom and transform more and more into even messier situations and even more hard to process emotions. And like, you know, when I would go to some people about that and my two therapists that I have, it just was really hard to process all of that because it got such to a complex point that I say when I look back, I'm like, Violet, like if you had just not been so scared of confrontation, and just like just accepting that as much as you wanted something to be a certain way, that it just wasn't that way, none of this would have happened. And so it's been difficult the last few months of just realizing all of that, but really specifically like um and it as much as like I said, the friends I have now are the friends that like I have, and I love them. Like my if someone's my friend, I love them. Like I want to make that very, very clear. And I deeply care about them, and I will take care of them. Like all of my friends, that's how I feel that way about them. Like make that clear. But I also, the last few months, all these realizations, I have had to stop being, friends with like half of the people I was friends with, including people I have been friends with for over a decade. Um, and that sucked. Um, it really, really sucked a lot. Um, and it hasn't been easy, because some of those friendships that have ended have really deeply impacted some of my other friends, and even like my mother, actually, and that especially really upsets me. um Really, really upsets me. um and so like it just like has been just like so overwhelming, um to go through all of this. And so like in March, like I began that month like almost going to rehab, and like I almost like committed suicide at the beginning of that month, and like it was really bad. And like I I very quickly was like, okay, like something needs to change. And so I very quickly actually got a second job. And then I remember the day I was supposed to start that second job, I had to go to the emergency room because I had a blood clot scare, which thankfully was not a blood clot, but um, I could like I literally like couldn't walk. It was really bad. And so March, like the combination of like realizing that, okay, I think there's people in my life that aren't being truthful with me, and they're taking advantage of me, and they know they're taking advantage of me. um with like me trying to change some things, and then more bad things keep happening, um was horrible. um and so with YouTube, like it just was like I just didn't know like what to do, because like I did like the 4,000 subscribers like giveaway. And like I remember I did like, like Only People with Power by Death Heaven, the reaction to that. But like I remember even like doing the Death Heaven reaction, I almost didn't even do it, because I was in such like a miserable place with myself, and I was so sad, and like I was starting to feel really like lonely again. And like I was like I was like, Violet, like I I like something I want to say is like I refuse to get on camera if I'm not 100% authentic as to like where I am in that moment. And especially with an album reaction, like I will never fake like a reaction to music ever, ever. Like literally, like never. Like if I ever fake a reaction to music, like I will just delete my channel. Like I'm not even being dramatic when I say that. That is literally what I will do. And so it just is like I didn't even almost do that video, because I remember that day I just was not like feeling great. But I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna do it. I feel like I can do it. Excuse me. Um, and I did it, and I think that's maybe like my best reaction, honestly, in terms of how I dissected the music and deciphered all of it. And so, you know, I'm glad I did it. I got recognized on YouTube recently from it, because I saw Death Heaven live in Connecticut. And I had a lovely person come up to me and talk to me for, like a few seconds, to introduce themselves to me. And we talked a little about, me going to that show and just recognizing me. And that was the first time I got recognized from YouTube. And that was such a special moment, for me. and the show was also Great for Deaf Heaven. So, I'm glad that I did that, but besides that, I just like didn't really do like video. Like I didn't like feel like comfortable doing videos because like I was in such a crisis state in my life. Um and like I just felt like I couldn't be authentic, because I was like doubting myself a bit, and like I was doubting some of the people like that I was surrounding myself with, and then I started to feel really guilty because I was like, like I was like trying to take my time of figuring all this stuff out, but I was like, I don't want to like lead anybody on. And it just was becoming really overwhelming for me. And so YouTube like had to kind of then take like a back seat around this time, which like I really like it upsets me, like a tiny bit when I look back. I will heal from it fully and move on and stuff, but like there was so many like things that like happened back then that like I wish I could have talked about more, like specifically like my Hurry Up Tomorrow film. I really like that film. I know most people didn't, which is totally okay. But I really like that movie personally, and I really wanted to do more coverage on that than I did, and I just didn't, because I just wasn't in like a good space back then. But also like I saw like Deftones live, and like Deftones, like the still from the Sex Tape music video was literally like the profile picture from my YouTube channel, and that was a massive moment for me. And I just decided just not to talk about it because I just like didn't like feel comfortable talking about it, and like it had nothing to do with anything like that happened that night or anything like that. It more so had to do with the fact that like I was so depressed, and like I like didn't want to like get like on camera and like be like, oh my god, like I saw like Deftones live, like oh my god guys, like when like it wasn't like that. Like I was so like lonely back then, and I was so just like broken, and like I don't know, like I've made videos, of course, like multiple times, I'm going through really tough like mental health stuff, of course, but it was a bit different with all of this because I was like I just don't feel like I can be myself on camera right now, and I also wanted to go see this band called Anxious live. That was incredible. That was an amazing show. And I even wanted to do a video on that, just a quick little thing. And even that, like, it was an incredible evening for me. I just was like, no, nah. And like, I remember I was like trying to go see like some new films and stuff like that and do videos on that. And like I remember I was supposed to go see like Sinners, like the day it came out, like an IMAX. And I was gonna do like a whole video talking about that film. And also like I remember Mickey 17 a few weeks prior, and I was so excited. And like so good to just focus on Sinners. I didn't end up seeing that until like almost like 2 months later. That film is incredible. But like I just like it was like stuff like that where I was like, no, I'll just wait because like like there's no point in making a video because like I'm not gonna be able to be authentic. And like so I kind of just was like, I don't know like what to make videos on. And so the end of April, came around, and I was like, okay, like what can I like do, because like I tried doing like the carpet bed EP reaction, and it turned out, wow. And I uploaded it. But with Golden Age and Inbred, for Ethel Kane, I ended up just canceling them because I wasn't scheduling them also well to fit in with my schedule. And so I just literally was in like full crisis mode of my life. Like I had no clue what direction I was going in, no clue what to do. And I was like, what like do I even like do at this point? Because I can't fit into my schedule. It's like I don't know what to do. And so the end of April comes around, and I'm like, okay, what should I do to like maybe help myself like reset myself? And artistic stuff and creative stuff is always for me the thing that like I express myself like the like just the purest in, and it fulfills me the most, and like I feel the most safe and comfortable. And sorry, I am just trying to readjust myself because my legs are getting a little sleepy. um and so like I was like, okay, like what can I do? And so I thought about my Auburn Wanderer music. And so when Silencio came out last year at the beginning of January, that was meant to be like the end of the Auburn Wanderer. And I released a song as Violet Chantal called The Birth of an Angel a few months after, in September. 2024. That song got taken down a few times because the mix on it wasn't turning out as well as I wanted it to, and I was kind of rushing to complete it and being very impulsive and not really just like thinking it through and being patient. And so I was like, okay, I want to release that song still, but like is the Auburn Wanderer finished though? And I was like, I don't know, because like all of my Auburn Wanderer stuff, like from the beginning to Silencio, like of course, like, it's made by me, and was made by me, so it is of course like about me, in a certain sense. But the vast majority of material that I made as, the Auburn Wanderer, like 99% of it, to that point, was about like other people and situations I've gone through and how I was coping with all that stuff, and how I was healing from all that stuff. um and I'm proud of what I did, especially Silencio. But I said to myself, I was like, Violet, like when I did the You Can Rest Now project, like even though I took it down, around that time, I was like, that was like the only Auburn Wanderer project that was like about you, like yourself, like fully about you. Like it was about nobody else except you. I was like, I was like, if you want to go back and like finish the Auburn Wanderer, like for good this time, make sure you go back and like finalize like the discography that you have, and then like make sure it ends fully about yourself. And so I took down all the videos that I had, like all my Desired Feelings stuff, like all like the Sunseo stuff, like all of it, and I re-upload all of them just as like full project things. I upscaled the Desired Feelings interview with my friend Philip Fana 599 to 4K, and the You Can Rest Now project, I just took the title track, made it its own thing, and then I decided to go, and then was like, you know what? Like, I had this Honey and Propaganda mixtape that I released in 2018's Album Wanderer that I took down a few months after because I was like so embarrassed about it and I was ashamed of it, and like I was like, this, I just don't like it. And I was like, you know what, Violet? How about you go back and like fix a few things and like do a new song for it and release it again? And so I did that, and that was so therapeutic for me and so nice. And so I'm glad that that's back out there. But then I was like, well, do you want to do like a final epilogue song? And so I did. And the melody I use and the drums on that are very, very, very intentional. And very much is like an epilogue kind of thing, because it was taking sounds that I have very specifically used before about other people and kind of transforming into something about myself more so. And that to me was like an epilogue kind of thing. And it felt like the Auburn Wanderer was like really fading away in that moment. And to me that was like the definition of like an epilogue, where it's like the story had ended, but like myself, I was like continuing, and I was going into a new chapter. And so I finished April with all of that. And I put Auburn Wanderer music back onto streaming because I'd taken it off, for a few months. And it's on streaming permanently forever, which I'm very, happy about. But all the money I do make from that, and I think they're also up on Bandcamp, if I remember correctly, too. Just any money I make from it in general, always for Auburn Wanderer will be getting donated to Rosie's Place in Boston, Massachusetts. Because Auburn Wanderer stuff, like, I'm proud of it. I made it. I'm especially proud of Silencio. Like, as much as I'm proud about that stuff, like, that was a part of my life that, like, what happened and stuff. It's part of my story, but I wanted to let it rest, and I didn't want to make any money anymore off of it. And so I was like, well, I want to have it on streaming and stuff like that. So like, what should I do though with the money that I do make from it? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna donate it to a place that I care about, like Rosie's Place in Boston, Massachusetts. And so I'm gonna be donating any money I've made so far, since I've finished Auburn Wanderer, to Rosie's Place at the end of the year. I'll make my own donation. I'm gonna do it at the end of every single year. And so, I was like, okay, like maybe this is like the reset, and like, Her Up Tomorrow, the film comes out in like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I'm gonna, yay. And unfortunately, things just kept kind of getting worse. Because I started having some health issues around that time, with my hormone levels, and it caused me to go through some pretty intense like physical pain, for about like 2.5, 3 weeks. And that was really tough on me. Like, this is something that only, like, Kevin really knows about, and like my mom and some of my really close friends. When I saw Hurry Up Tomorrow with Kevin, when he came down here to see that with me, I literally was on like the maximum dosage of like Tylenol that day. And like it was wearing off on me like on the way home, and I started to like cramp and get a lot of pain, and like I could barely like walk for the door like to get to my bed. Like when I got home, it was a mess. I was a mess back then. And so I was doing like a few YouTube things around that time, and like it just all felt just so like chaotic to me, and like it was starting then to kind of feel like, oh, I don't feel like I'm like 100% myself right now. And so then even more so in my personal life, like, like with my main job, like I was starting to really like question a lot of things. If like do I even still want to work here? And it's like, do I still even feel like fulfilled being here? And it's like, what do I really want to like do with my life goal wise? And like, do I want to like just go back to school at this point? Like all this stuff. And so literally like basically every aspect of my life that was fulfilling me like creatively with YouTube and stuff like that, and like my job and stuff like that. And then of course as I talked about some of my friends and stuff like that, I was starting to be, at the time I was like, I don't really know what's fully going on. It was starting to just feel really lost, and I was so confused, and I just didn't know what I was doing. And so at the very beginning of June, I set out a goal for myself. I was like, Violet, like this summer is going to be awesome for you, girl. Like you are going to slay, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And so very beginning of June, when me and one of my really close friends, we went on to Boston like multiple times, and like we had a lot of really good healing conversations. And I was like, okay, you know what, like I'm gonna start doing YouTube again really soon. And like I felt like, with my job, that like I was like, you know what, I think things are getting better. And with my friendships, I had worked on a few of them at that point, and I had some good conversations with certain people, and I was like, okay, you know what, like I think things are finally turning around for myself. And I was like, okay, you know what, maybe also like maybe I could look into like another job again, maybe like a seasonal type position just for the summertime, and just figuring that whole thing out. And then I remember the exact date for the rest of my life, June 6th. I got fired from my job, and that was like the most heartbreaking moment of my life, because it wasn't so much me losing the job, because the job I had, like I had it for 3 years. I learned so much about myself from it, and I learned so much about like workplaces and just like what I like to work in environment wise, and what I even want to do for like a career. I learned so much from it, and I am extremely grateful for that. And I am glad that I went through the experiences I did, with like the work and stuff like that. But, with all due respect to that job, my time there, it had to come to an end. Because like not so much focusing right now on why did I get fired and all this stuff. I'm focusing just right now at the moment, to that, like I didn't really want to work there anymore. And like that's something that like I admitted to like my supervisor and stuff like that day. And like I feel really honestly grateful that I'm no longer there. Um, and because I've been able to like evolve and change a lot of ways that like that job is making me like basically be stuck in. Um, but with all of that said, I did get fired. Um, and that was heartbreaking for me, because there were so many things I did not know I was doing wrong and were issues. And that's a problem, obviously. That's a massive problem. And that is something that I have taken a full accountability for, and I've learned from, and I'm continuing to learn from. But the thing about it that was so difficult for me is it wasn't losing the job that broke my heart. It was that there was people there, like a few people that I was like, I know it's the end of like these like connections and these relationships, and like it was losing the people there that I loved and I cared about that hurt me. And that's what like bothered me, like, you know, like about getting fired, you know. um you know, being fired's a horrible experience, of course, you know. I'm sure people who are watching this have gone through that, you know, themselves, but and it's terrible, you know. But for me, it wasn't so much losing the job, because my time there come to an end, you know, anyways, like for me, like mentally and like spiritually, and just my dedication to the job. But you know, it's really helped me move forward in a lot of ways with my life, and just kind of like, you know, push myself to new places. And you know, I have a new job now, and you know, I like it, and I'm actually making more money there now than I was at my other job, and you know, it's been going well. But um losing people that you love and care about is heartbreaking, you know. And it just has been hard to process, you know, in all honesty. And so the thing that was tough about it with the YouTube side, was that I, you know, got fired on June 6th, and then on June 10th, I had tickets to go see The Weeknd live at Gillette Stadium. The first night he did at Gillette. I'm just gonna move my legs a bit. I'm probably gonna adjust the angle a tiny bit for the rest of this video, because my legs are starting to cramp a little bit. And so my apologies for that. I, you know, had tickets to go see The Weeknd live at Gillette Stadium. And two of my friends, Kevin and Flippin' like literally traveled, like, to come see me, and I was like crying, and I was like miserable, and like the whole time, and like I felt so bad about it, you know. And like they were like, Violet, it's okay, and they were so understanding, and like, you know, they also were very honest with me about certain things and things that they wanted to see me improve on, and like that I'm very, very appreciative of, you know. Like that's a key thing with people in my life that, you know, I have still in my life, is that all of them are very supportive of me, but they're not afraid to be honest with me and give me very direct, you know, criticism that sometimes is a bit, you know, is very direct. I don't know if I want to say like harsh per se, because they don't mean it with bad intentions, but you know, they don't shy away, you know. And like that's really you know, something I admire, you know. And you know, my two friends, you know, Kevin from Number 9 around the time were doing that for me, but it was so tough because, you know, like we all spent so much money to, you know, do this whole thing together, and I was in so much pain, you know. And I was seeing, you know, my favorite artist like ever live, you know. It was my first time seeing him, but you know, still, like, it was such a massive deal. And you know, we were even debating, like, do we just like cancel this and sell the tickets? And everyone around me was like, no, Violet, like I don't think you should do that, like just you should still go. And I was like, okay. So you know, I did. But it was so tough, like, honestly, you know, I know this might sound like a bit too complainy, because you know, I'm talking about how I went to go see like a stadium show, you know, regardless of the fact that's like, you know, able, like, you know, it's a very privileged kind of experience to have, and a very blessed experience to have. But like, it was tough, honestly, because like I was seeing like the man that like I literally know I would not be alive, you know, currently, you know, without. And like I was seeing him live, and like I was so sad and miserable. And like it was tough, you know. And like with the YouTube thing, I was like, I don't even really know how to talk about this show, because it's like there's so much like context like around it that like I I just don't even know how to like express it right now, just because it was so new. And it was like I didn't want to like rush to talk about it or like process it. I was like, I want to take my time with this. um and so like I remember like on the way home, like from that show, like of course there were so many things going through my mind, not just the YouTube thing. With focus on the YouTube thing, I was like, I don't know how to even talk about this show. And so, you know, I took like a few days to kind of like, you know, just think about like, you know, like, hey, like, you know, I want to talk about it, but it's like, you know, how am I gonna, you know, do this? I was gonna do like my own like separate video about it, and then do the live stream with my friend Kevin about it. And then I got strep throat and pink eye. And I was able to recover from pink eye within like a few days or so. But strep throat took me a month to recover from, and that delayed the video even more so. And I was trying to job search around that time also, and I I had interviews happen. I had like certain jobs like have me come in for like a second interview. And then I still didn't get the job, which is okay. Obviously, the employer and, has to make the decision that's best for them and the employees in the company, of course. But that was really tough. And so I was like, okay, so I don't really know right now, like, what I want to even do for YouTube. Like, I have the show I want to talk about, but like, of course, like it was the weekend, so it was a beautiful experience in a lot of ways, but also like the emotions behind it were really specific and very unique to where I was in that moment. And I was not ready to fully express all of that and, and talking about the concert, but I still want to talk about it. So I kind of pushed myself through it. And even though I also had strep for at the time. And so Kevin and I did do a live stream talking about it. And, I think it was a totally fine video on the show and the live stream, but, you know, it kind of was just sad because it was like, I was talking about seeing like The Man That Saved My Life live. And I just was kind of like, yeah, let's like just get through it. I just want to like get it out of the way. Like, that is not at all like representative of my respect I have for Abel and his art. Like, it just isn't. But I also give myself a lot of grace, I know, because it's like, Violet, like, you were going through like pain, back then, and it's like, you're figuring a lot of things out and processing a lot of things, and like it's okay that like, that it just wasn't, no matter what, going to be like the greatest concert experience for you. And so that has really been like the last video I made that has stayed up on the channel, in terms of like me, like recent videos I had made, because I had uploaded like a little like Daft Punk like thing that I had, involving like The Weeknd. But besides that, like I uploaded like The Birth of an Angel finally and completed that, but that's been it. That's literally been it. The only other thing that like had really gone up was that I had talked about like wanting to like start documenting like a weight loss journey, which I very quickly decided to not do that in the moment, because I knew that my binge eating was not really going to be able to be fully addressed. And it has been recently, which has been nice. And I've lost like over 10 pounds actually, since August, which has been nice. There's still a lot more work to do, and I kind of have like stopped really focusing on it as much recently. And I actually am considering maybe making videos on that again soon, and like starting that whole process again, and being very honest and very vulnerable and very direct about what's been going on with that, because I don't mind talking about that stuff. But it's just like, it's just been hard to want to make videos because I haven't been happy. I've like there's been some positive things, that have like happened, in my life. I mentioned, how I saw, Death Heaven in Connecticut, my friend Philip in a 599, and, I got recognized and stuff like that. It was great. I also saw Tyler the Creator live back in July, and he's my favorite artist to see live. Like, Abel's my favorite artist. My favorite artist to see live is Tyler. And it was for Chromacopia, and I love that album. I love like his last few albums, but like, that's a huge testament to just how brilliant he is. And that was a great show. But again, like I just was like, I just don't know if I want to make a video on it, because like I'm just so sad right now. At the same time, as happy as that experience, was in a lot of ways. And even like Don't Tap the Glass came out like a week after that show, if I remember correctly. And I love that project. And I really wanted to do a reaction to it, but I just was like, no, I know I'm not gonna be able to be as authentic as I want to be, no matter what. And like, again, I am not faking anything. And then it was just tough too, because I also really wanted to do reactions to the Deftones album, which, okay, I just gotta ramble quickly. One of their best albums. It's incredible. It's immaculate. It's so good. I like that, like the fact that Deftones have been around for 30 years now, and they're making like just masterworks like that. Like, shout out to Deftones. I love Deftones. At some point, I will make a full video on Deftones on the channel. I promise. I love them so much. Private Music is unbelievable. It's one of my very favorite Deftones projects now. I adore it. Um, but I also really wanted to do a reaction to Man's Best Friend because I love Sabrina Carpenter. I'm a very, very big fan of hers. And so I really wanted to do reactions to those. And I even was thinking of a reaction to the new Taylor Swift album that just came out like literally 2 days ago. And like there's been like albums I've been, even the Kid Cudi album I also wanted to do a reaction to. Like there's just been like albums that have come out and things that have happened that it's like, and even some films. Like I had ticket to go see like the Smashing Machine early, like an IMAX, and like I decided to cancel that because I was like, well, I was really gonna go see it to do like a video on it. But like I was like, I don't know if I'm like fully right to like all of this like stuff that like just didn't happen because I was just so sad and miserable. And so like there has been like things I've wanted to make videos on. And I feel like honestly, especially the biggest thing is probably Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I was, you know, doing some gameplay videos of that. And I took them down because I actually have not played that game since the beginning of July. Um, that has been something I've been really holding off on playing because the first Death Stranding means so much to me. Like, I adore that game with every part of my soul and my fiber and my being. It literally changed how I view like relationships in life and just the world in general. I'm not being dramatic when I say that. And the second game was like my most anticipated thing, like maybe ever, honestly. But when it came out, I had the early access for like June 24th, I think it was. I was doing videos and I was still struggling with Stratford around that time. I was so depressed and I was so sad and I was so suicidal and I was like, I don't want to play this right now. Like this, like I know, like even if I don't like this game as much as the first one, like it still is a Death Stranding thing and it's like it means so much to me that it's like I don't want to play this whole thing right now. You know, it's just such a long commitment and it's like I just wasn't in the right headspace for it, you know? And so I just haven't been playing it. And so I haven't played it in gosh, like 3 months. And so I think in the next few weeks probably. I want to get done for the end of the year. But that was like a big thing I was gonna make so many videos on. I even talked with that in my concert review for the weekend a few months ago. And it just never happened. That was actually a big part of why I even did the video finally on the weekend with Kevin. Um, and so if to kind of get back to me personally, like there was all those videos that I had ideas for, and there's even like some film nights videos I wanted to do, and like none of it happened because I was so sad, I was so confused, and I didn't know what to do with my life. I genuinely didn't know, and it didn't really get any easier until recently, in all honesty, because like I began cutting out some people in my life and saying goodbye to some friends that I had, starting at the end of June. And that has unfortunately been something that has been continuing up until very recently. And that's been really, really hard. It was my decision at the end of the day to end those connections, and it is for the best, but it also is not easy having to end so many friendships in like the span, like and not that long of a time, in terms of like, a time span. And so like, for myself, like personally, it's like, like I got so ill, and then I was fired, and like I didn't know what to do with YouTube, and like, my friendships were just like so up in the air, and I was like, who can I really trust? And like I learned but in a really tough way, like who actually was like my friend, and those are a lot of lessons that I think a lot of people go through in life, of course. But some of the ways that some of them happened, specifically something that happened like a month ago, like was so shocking to me and disgusted me so much, and it really affected me. And I've moved on, like, since then, and I'm glad that I am no longer friends with some people, but it also was devastating for me, especially such long connections with people that I had had. And I just, like, was just so just lost on, like, what to do with my life. And so, to kind of, I guess, get back to, like, you know, the beginning of this video, I did an update video 2 weeks ago and I was in Connecticut. And I was like, you know what? I feel like this night kind of reminded me of, why I want to do YouTube. And it did. But I also said to myself, looking back, that it was like, I took the video down for, a few reasons. Like, the audio wasn't good. My hotel stay was bad. But also, like, really mainly it was like, I know that deep down, I just wanted to come on camera and just express to everybody, like, what has really been happening. Because there's been so many, like, broken promises that I've made, and it's been really because of the crises I've been going through in my personal life, and me not being able to focus on YouTube or even be motivated or feel, like, comfortable doing videos. Um, and I also, and this is something I talked about this, publicly on my community tab, and so I don't want to rehash it too much, because like I had my time doing the Ethel Kane reactions and stuff like that, and I don't want to ever disrespect Hayden. I would like I'm not going to do that to a trans woman. like like just because I'm no longer a fan of hers does not mean I'm going to be disrespectful to her. Like, yes, she did some things that really upset me, and I don't feel comfortable listening to her art anymore. But in the day, like, she's also a trans woman, and, like, I am not going to get on camera and be like, oh my god, like, I said my piece already on it, But I also will say, on camera that, not doing any more Ethel Kane videos was also part of why I just haven't made YouTube, because I was like, crap, like, that's such a massive part of why people watch me. And it's like, I don't, like, that's not happening anymore. And so I already was not sure what to do with YouTube. So when all of that happened, like, in July, I was like, oh gosh, like, I really don't know what to do anymore. And so that's why the break from YouTube, like, fully happened. And so I knew, looking back at everything, that I was like, okay, Violet, like, when you're ready, like, get on camera and just talk about what's really been going on. And that's what's been really going on. And so, listen, like, I'm getting a new phone soon. So, like, that's really exciting. And so the videos will be able to be made the way I want them to be. Again, I'm going to make this on my MacBook Pro. I'm literally going to, like, record this as I am right now and upload it straight to YouTube. Like, I'm not even going to process it for DaVinci Resolve to be in, like, 4K or whatever. Whatever resolution this is what it is. What the audio is what it is, But, but also, like, I knew that, like, so much, like, about myself, like, has been changing for, like, the better, and I really have been healing in a lot of really healthy ways recently, and that I feel like my life is really moving forward and a new chapter is beginning for me. Again, the past dictates the future. Like, there's parts of my story that have happened that, will always be there in some kind of specific ways as to who, where I got to today, of course. But there's also so much about it that, like, I know it, like, doesn't, like, define me. And I know that, like, we're just, like, learning lessons, and just things to grow from, and, and, and I just want to just, like, keep moving forward, and so I the last few days, like I said, like prior in this video, I've been having some good conversations with people, and I've really felt like things are, like, beginning again finally, and I feel like the pain I've gone for the last few months is really subsiding a lot. It's still there in some ways, of course. I still have nightmares, a few nights a week about some things. That's something I haven't really told many people about in my life, but sleep's been a little difficult because of that. But, like, I know those, like, PTSD symptoms and stuff like that, I know it'll get easier over time, because I have two therapists. I've been seeing my old therapist. I've been seeing them again recently, after everything went down with me getting fired and not knowing what was going on with my life and just being in a crisis state, and I got super ill from the strep throat, and it was just a bunch of things were going on, of course, all that combined, with me mentally. And so, like, I'm doing good work at healing from everything, and I'm doing good, I'm taking time off for myself now, and I have a good supportive new job, and I'm just working on as much as I can, but definitely some things are still challenging, but I also know that it's like I feel like I'm really beginning again, finally. And it's like, so knowing that like I'm able to make videos again the way I want them to when I upgrade the phone soon, I with that combined with just feeling like I'm really moving forward finally, I was like, you know what, Violet, like, 2 weeks ago I was like, I clearly want to get on camera and just talk about what's really been going on. And so that's what's been happening in my life. Um yeah, that's that. I just wanted just to finally tell everybody what's really been going on with me, because I've been made so many promises that just haven't happened, and like I I just I feel bad because like having this channel has changed my life, and the people who watch me mean so much to me, and like I don't ever want to take them for granted, and I definitely haven't, but I feel like my actions like came across that way, and I am so sorry that I did that. Of course I'm sorry about that, but I also know that like there was so much context that like I know would have provided at least some clarity as to why things were happening and why they did happen the way they did this year so far. Um and so I wanted to kind of just like really just fully put myself out there and explain what's been really going on with me, you know. And so this is, after this, like, I'm ready to move forward, and I'm ready to keep going with my life and begin again, like, just because the past can dictate the future in a lot of ways doesn't mean I can't have like a new beginning in a lot, in a full picture kind of way, um and so I'm looking forward to soon making videos, and I'm really excited. And just for myself personally, I think the last few months of this year are going to be really special for me. There are some things that I have planned for the rest of this year that I'm making some videos on. There's also some very major things happening in my life that I'm very excited for. But we'll talk about those later. I just want to end this on that, like, I'm gonna be okay. I mean, I am doing okay. It hasn't. This has been a really. It's been a strange year, because there's been some really great positive moments to me, and I've learned so much about myself, and I'm so happy and grateful for that. But I also have gone through so much pain and heartbreak, and it's been devastating in a lot of ways. But I also know that, like I said, the lessons I've learned from that and the ways I've been able to look at myself in the mirror and take accountability for myself and like just become a better, healthier person because of that is so valuable, and is not something to like, you know, like I want to celebrate that, like it's not something to kind of just like be like, yeah, like, whatever, like no, like I like I'm appreciative of that. And so yeah. So I just want to promise everybody I'm okay. Like, I'm not gonna hurt myself. The I'm not going to. Like there was like some things that were like happening also that like I haven't even told people about this also, but like I wasn't even taking like my hormones for like a week, because like I do injections. I actually have been wanting to make videos on injections actually for estrogen. I might make those like maybe like down the line. But I didn't do that for like a week, like one of my weekly ones, to like hurt myself back in like I think it was like July or something. It like I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I'm taking care of myself. I truly mean it when I say, like, at the point of why I'm sharing that is that it's like I'm not doing stuff like that anymore, and I'm gonna keep living, you know, and I want to keep living. And so I promise people that I'm okay. And I'm gonna keep going. And with the channel, we're gonna have fun. And we're gonna do some cool videos for the rest of this year. And I look forward to that. To anyone who's watched this whole thing, thank you. Genuinely thank you. I'm really excited to do more videos soon. I've missed YouTube and I miss all of you so much. Thank you all for changing my life, and you know, to anyone who supports me, thank you. You know, to my family and my friends that I have, I love you. Thank you for, you know, taking care of me and supporting me and believing in me. Um, and I am really looking forward to just seeing where, you know, we go from here. And so, yeah. So, okay. I think I'll wrap this up here because this is so long. And, you know, I also know, like, there's no, like, real, like perfect way to make a video like this. So, you know, so yeah. So, I think I'm happy with how this turned out. So, yeah. Thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you guys soon. Alrighty. Bye, everybody.